Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this panel on the role of technology in fostering sustainability of an FPO. Many thanks for all the introductions, and I welcome all the panelists and participants to this important panel. Before we deep dive into the session, let me just take a couple of minutes to set the context. We all know that the agriculture is transforming and there's a huge amount of adoption of technology across domains, be it digital tech, be it biotech, be it food tech. And that's kind of creating a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurship and impacting farmers in multiple ways. As far as FPO is concerned, clearly one of the key benefits of the integration of these technology tools is access to markets, which is one of the pressing challenges in Indian agriculture. It also open up opportunity to source agriculture input more efficiently. So I think that's a one clear benefit that FPO can derive. Other element is also which is critical from an FPO capacity building is to how to run the FPO operation more efficiently with tools such as ERP tools for management, tools for farm monitoring, and tools for multiple digitization of the entire farming activity from sowing to harvest. Another important element of technology as far as FPO is concerned is also the opportunity that is available on hand is in terms of value addition at the farm. I think most of the FPOs still sell crops as commodities. I think there's an opportunity to convert that into product and that into a brand, right? And that can happen with a lot of opportunities in micro warehousing, micro processing to add more value at the farm so that FPO can sell value-added products and farmer earns a larger share in the end consumer price. And last but not the least, I think I'm assuming with a lot of digitization happening in the agriculture, it is opening up huge amount of opportunity for building tools which can enable farmers to access institutional credit and insurance, which are highly underpenetrated as of now. So, of course, there are few areas where I think the whole technology would drive Indian agriculture in particular, and particularly scaling of FPOs in time to come. And for that, we have a very experienced panel to talk about it. And maybe I can start with Ranjit, Ranjit from Stalabs. Ranjit, you have done phenomenal amount of work in digitizing the whole dairy value chain. What is your experience working with thousands of farmers on adoption of tech solutions for multiple things such as payments, quality control, cattle management, disease management? If you can throw some light on that, that'll be really useful.
Sure. Thank you, Hemendra. Thank you for having me here. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So in terms of the tech, the solutions that we have deployed, we've been predominantly only focused on dairy and focus on milk. If you actually consider milk, as a crop, it's probably the largest crop on the planet, and it's probably the single most important source of protein in India, way above the meat in the market. And what we have attempted to do is use some really deep tech, combination of sensors, sensor controllers, IoT routers, cloud analytics, to help improve productivity, quality, and traceability of the dairy supply chain. Right? Broadly, trying to digitize this dairy supply chain. It's a highly aggregated supply chain in India. Very small holding farmers, highly fragmented. So the only way to shift orbit for such a supply chain is to use tech and so that there is a sort of a logical notion of intensification and precision farming coming into picture, while physically the farms might continue to be disaggregated. So what we have done is in the dairy supply chain, which is sort of stitched together as a combination of farm collection centers, chilling centers for cold chain, because milk is perhaps the most perishable crop vis-a-vis any other crop out there. The processing plant, distributors, retailers across the dairy supply chain, viewing them as one cohesive unit, collect data using a combination of hardware, software, and electronics, and sort of build a demand backward supply chain, a demand backward value added exchange to enable milk sale, value added products, cheese, paneer, nutrition sale. And while we do all of these other inputs, products and services which the farmer needs, that can be leveraged on top of the network that we have built. For example, financial services, insurance, nutrition, artificial insemination, breeding, cattle pharmaceuticals. Can all of this be bundled? Because once you build out this tech network for this entire value chain, then suddenly you realize that a lot more value added services, financial services, insurance services can be rendered. And why do we need to do it? Because that's probably the only way in which you can amortize the variable costs and amortize the access across multiple services and multiple ecosystem players. And as Hemendra said, the context in the beginning, when you start doing this and deploying tech, you're also sort of catering to the mass premium market, not just the commodity market. Because traditionally, these supply chains have been built supply forward to meet the quantitative sufficiency of the commodities rather than demand backward to cater to some specific market types that on a weighted average basis can improve the margins. Right? In India, the margin pools lies in a disaggregated manner across India. So you have to actually, stakeholders, if they have to make money, we need to sort of build demand backwards, go after those margin pools in a way that you're sort of building a multi-grade supply chain, so that finally the benefit goes back to the FPOs and the farmers. And we've sort of taken a B2B2F approach to deploying technology, B2B to farmer rather than B to farmer. And here is where the FPOs play a significantly better role. They become extremely pivotal in partnering with us in taking these technologies, training, and working like a local trust point, a local assisted point in those villages where they already exist, where they already are present, and they're already a point of trust in that particular village. And then use the data from the digital access network that we have built out to enable credit, insurance, underwrite risk better, and all of that. We have always stopped short of selling directly to the farmers in a retail fashion, which is where we started life, and then switched to a B2B2F model where the FPOs and cooperatives become the key, service rendering point for us to render all of these, technologies and service, either individually or as a bundle, because farmers finally, need outcome. So they don't buy products, they actually buy services with which they can really see incomes going up. And scale faster, and we are able to recover the money faster because the recovery now happens through the FPOs. So a number of tech components that fit in, like the Fitbit for the cows that goes around the animal's leg. We have an alternate credit score for the dairy farmers, facial recognition of animals. All of these cohesively work by rendering the service as an end outcome, and an end-to-end service to these dairy farmers. The uptake has been pretty good. We have digitized about 11.5 million liters of milk flow per day, 2.7 million farmers on a platform, access to 7 million cattle, over $1 billion worth of farmer payments happening through a platform on an annualized basis. A huge amount of credits, getting rendered on a platform as loans, in terms of small loans, big ticket loans, cattle loans. All of it, being made possible because the FPOs land up being a pivotal part of this entire service rendering. So that's sort of been our approach and a quick, take on that question, Hemendra.
Thanks, Ranjit. And these are very overwhelming numbers. Clearly, we are seeing a digital revolution after a few decades of white revolution in dairy. So that's great. And I think good you mentioned that FPO work as point of trust. I think for any farmer to adopt digital tools, FPO definitely is one of the key go-to-market channels, not just for startups, but I know many of the agri-tech startups are using to build their access to farmers. With that, I'll go to Dhyanesh from Gram Cover. Dhyanesh, we all know the penetration of insurance products in the rural areas is pretty low. And we know Gram Cover is one of the sort of front runners in building that reach, building that distribution for the farmers. Share your experience. How did you manage it? And what's your experience working with any FPO in particular? Over to you, Dhanesh.
Thank you, Hemendra, for the question. So at Gram Cover, as you mentioned, the whole mandate is to create insurance-based solutions to de-risk rural India. And as rightly said, insurance in India is significantly low, whether it is in terms of insurance penetration as a percentage of GDP or insurance density. And we kind of started a journey in December 2017. It's been almost 3 years for us that we've been doing or creating access to insurance in rural areas. And obviously technology is a key enabler for us, but at the same time we also work on an assisted tech model. So we have a point of sale partner network that actually distributes insurance on our behalf. So we realized very early that both in terms of creating the first level of connect with the customer, as well as helping out the customer at the time of claim to ensure that the entire process of insurance is completed. Not there is not just policy distribution, but there is also servicing of claims. Having a local face in front of the rural customer would be extremely important, and that's how the kind of the model has been built. Uh, in terms of the various tools that we, I would say, utilize for distributing insurance, and we've kind of been able to scale significantly, starting from around 1,000 odd customers in FY18. In FY21, we have worked with more than 19 lakh farmers. And I think the scope of work that can be done in rural insurance to create the, I would say, resilience for the smallholder farmer, whether it is a agricultural farmer, whether it is a dairy farmer, whether it is a fisheries customer, I think it is just immense. In terms of various tools that we utilize to create insurance access in rural India, I think the first one, obviously most important, is a technology platform. So the Gram Cover application is a partner focused app. We have done a lot of product integrations with insurance companies for a lot of rural relevant products. So when you look at rural India, crop insurance is one very big part of what we do. We've also looked at livestock insurance in a large way. We've looked at health insurance solutions, which are benefit health products, where the claim settlement can be done fairly easily and quickly and transparently for the benefit of the customer. And all of these are products that we have put onto the Gram Cover application. And these are used by the point of sale partner to kind of distribute in rural areas. Within the application, there are multiple tools that we use to facilitate the distribution of insurance. So one is obviously product integration that we do with insurance companies. The second is payment solutions. So while we have our own payment gateway, we also integrate payment gateways of multiple insurance companies onto the platform, and we've created our own in-house payment solution, including a wallet for all of our POS point of sale partners, which enables them to do a real-time transaction and also enables us to engage with them even on the remuneration side in real-time basis. We also have a complete training and certification setup in the application itself. So this is, again, when you look at insurance, you want to make sure that the person who's distributing insurance knows about the regulation around insurance in the first place, and also about the various products that he or she is kind of offering, so that the chances of mis-selling are minimized. I think one of the key challenges that insurance faces, and we've heard a lot of complaints historically, have been about mis-selling or not the right set of information not really going to the customer. So we have created training and certification modules in our application, which is used by our point of sale partners to familiarize themselves with insurance regulation as well as products. And these are available both in terms of the English language and Hindi as of now, and we plan to scale it up to more vernacular languages. Also, we have created videos. So we all know that consuming content in video format is simpler for people, and I think that is one thing that is we have already done to a certain extent. And going forward, we'll continue to build more and more videos, especially about product, process, and compliance within our modules. Also, we have a lot of customer data now over the last couple of years, and I think the next phase for us is to do smart intelligent analytics on top of it and facilitate our point of sale partners to be more efficient in terms of their renewals, as well as in terms of going and doing more new customer acquisition. And in terms of the context of this conversation today, I would say that we already have an assisted tech model, and I think it fits in beautifully with an FPO model that is there, especially on the agriculture side, because the FPOs are any which ways an aggregation of people, and there are people within the FPO who are connected with all the FPO members. And I think these people would be ideal members to kind of partner with Gram Cover and bring access to insurance also, apart from the various other services that they provide to the farmers and FPO members. They would be an ideal partner to kind of work with Gram Cover, and we are very, very excited of what we can do with FPOs, and that journey for us is an ongoing one. Last year we had worked with an FPO in Maharashtra who was into small animal financing. Now, so small animal financing typically happens more informally, and small animal insurance is a very difficult task because the ticket size are really small, as low as say 150, 200 rupees. And we were able to partner with them and kind of create an insurance access through the Gram Cover application, where we partnered with them. Their people actually become, or their sakhis actually became our partners, and we were able to create access to insurance. So I think we're very excited about the journey that we can traverse and work with the FPOs to create insurance access to scale at scale in rural areas. Thank you, Hemendra.
Thanks, Ganesh. Some very important points you mentioned. I think assisted tech is the way to go. I think it's going to be a hybrid model. We call it digital assist by multiple names, but that seems to be the right approach, the way the current ecosystem is. And I think you also mentioned the role of videos, and I personally believe video, voice, and vernacular is a great combination to build access to farmers. And thanks for highlighting the role of FPOs in building the distribution reach among farmers. Thanks, Ganesh. With that, I'll move to Major Ved Prakash Sharma, founder and CEO of Gratitude Farm. So we know that you're doing a phenomenal amount of job in automation, in enabling value addition at the farm, which I think is extremely critical to make farming efficient and remunerative to the farmers, right? So we definitely are very keen to learn about your experience in Gratitude Farms. And do you see a role of FPOs in scaling the model which Gratitude Farm has built? Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Hemendra, and thank you for having me here. So, Gratitude Farms, I mean, we are a startup. We started this company primarily to help ex-soldiers take up organic farming as a means of livelihood and sustainable livelihood at that. Now, along the way, you see, I mean, we are out to disprove the myth that organic farming is not as profitable, if not more, for particularly a small farmer. And there's been a lot of work that we've done. Our model, what we call is a food forest model, which is essentially a synthesis of traditional organic farming practices with technology and operational discipline. You see, one of the silent problems in agriculture today is the lack of discipline at the grassroots level. It has a direct bearing on the productivity and hence the profits that farmers can make. So we have, in our own way, learned every step of the way and synthesized these three things. And so first, I would like to just share with you some of the experiences that we had in terms of how do you bring in the sustainable productivity at the grassroots level. Now, so one is, of course, the role of automation, particularly for irrigation and fertigation, is one of the key fundamental points. And while dealing with natural and organic farming, you are talking about a very systematic way of doing things. We have been able to work on a solution. It's called an Aquanet solution. It's a brilliant solution by a startup where we actually automate and monitor the dispensation of water and fertigation, right? And now just a small point, soil needs moisture. It doesn't need water. So it's all about moisture retention. I'm talking organic farming, which is all about microbial activity below the soil. In two lines, if I were to describe organic farming, take care of microbes below the soil, take care of pests above the soil, everything else is done by nature. So how do you have maximum amount of time for moisture so that the microbial activity increases? So instead of watering it when the sun is up, your borewell, etc., may be solar. They may be working at a time when the sun is high. But we need to give the water early in the morning, late in the evening, and also as per the soil conditions. So simple IoT-based sensors, which will tell you exactly what is the requirement. And this particular solution decides how much water to dispense. And all this can be done remotely on a mobile. And the beauty is that this is something, this solution can be shared. So if you have multiple farmers, you have a group of farmers who are sharing a common pool of water resource, this can be applied. It's a brilliant solution. It brings down the consumption of water by as much as 50% while ensuring sustainable availability of irrigation. To this, we add simple systems like Venturi and add the organic nutrients, etc. So that's one of the ways to handle one of the critical aspects, which is the irrigation and the fertigation. Now, along the way, obviously, when we have the disciplined activity around this, I am from Army. I have learned to live processes and not follow processes. That's what Army used to teach us, right? You apply those kind of things. All my farm managers are ex-soldiers. When we give them a list and an SOP to follow, there is a need for us to actually monitor or put a monitoring layer on top of what the people may or may not do. I'll give you a practical example. Out of my 10, 15 farms, identical soil, identical seeds, identical water, identical climatic conditions, different yields. What's happening? The people exactly, are they doing the set of activities which is expected of them? And if they don't, nature will not tell you anything. It will only tell you after 60 days when the fruiting will not happen. And you have lost the opportunity. So this is where an idea of my experience in telecom days, when I used to work in companies like Ericsson and Nokia, that came in. You have these big network operation centers in big cities through which you manage the entire Pan-India's network. Whether the base station is in remote area in Bihar or Jharkhand or Assam, you can manage it from one place. Simplest of activities is taught to the local person so that he can do what is supposed to be done. 80% of the problems are solved that way. Whatever is not, refer it back to the NOC. Replace a base station with a 2-acre farm. The process remains the same. So what we are doing is we are actually working with an engineering college in Bangalore, RV College of Engineering, and we are using open source ERP platform, and we are developing a full-fledged platform for monitoring as well as for dispensation of knowledge on a near real-time basis to our farmers. It's still a work in progress, but the results, early results, are already very good. And this also lends itself to replicability in a much faster way, because you see, you are building up a knowledge base. If you've got it right for 10 farms, the next 10 farms will come up that much faster. And we are talking small farmers. Now, this is the point which is also going to help us. We are in the process of setting up an FPO for ex-soldiers in Tamil Nadu. And we aim to have about 2,000 ex-soldiers in next 1 year. And they're all going to be scattered. You see, they don't have big farmlands. These are people with 2, 3, 4 acres of land. So having this kind of system at grassroots level, have the discipline and the rigor of activity and a monitoring and a supervision layer, which will ensure that gaps are fulfilled. We are hoping that we can actually bring in organic farming for small farmers in a big way.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. It's good to know a FPO setup by an ex-soldier. I can tell you, I haven't heard about it. So it's probably going to be one of the most unique FPOs that we're going to see in Indian market. And I hope it motivates other ex-soldiers to set up FPO for themselves. So this is great. And I particularly like your statement that soil needs moisture, not water. I think that's a great statement to make, to drive water use efficiency in agriculture. And your point on microbial activity, I think we have to be extremely respectful of them, of the role which microbes play in making soil nutritious and healthy. So thanks for some wonderful point that you made. With that, I'll go to Raj, MD and CEO of Kalgudi. So the question that I have for Raj is, how can technology solve issues like market discovery, aggregation, negotiations, digital value chains, and disputes in a sustainable way? Raj, over to you.
Thank you, Hemendra. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, a quick bit of Kalgudi is a convergence platform that actually connects everyone in the ecosystem, starting from farmers, traders, and value chain players, and everyone, including institutions and governments, through a set of marketplaces for inputs, outputs, and direct to consumers. So for this session, the question is very apt, Hemendra. It's a very narrow view of sustainability, but still It's very important with respect to market-related sustainability. See, my experience in the markets, it's been over a decade now, and though it's not very familiar in agriculture domain, adverse selection and moral hazards are actually happening in a big time in agriculture, right? And they play very differently, of course, compared to the financial domain, but they need to be addressed very carefully. A quick example is adverse selection is when an FPO and its buyers have no symmetric information about prices and qualities. Buyers generally, to mitigate their wrong buy risk, they tend to pay an average price that to lower than the average price for every lot. Though this might seem okay, but actually this seriously hurts the FPO who has a better offering, right? And since there are no differential benefits for better practices or producers, moral hazard kicks in. And over the time, the cycle of adverse selection and moral hazard, leads to an unsustainable markets, which is actually what we are witnessing today. Okay. Now, how can technology help solve this? I mean, particularly this is not like an used car market, right? Agriculture is a lot different than like a car. Particularly let's say there are no standards here. That's a big problem that we are seeing. This being a mango season, I don't know how many of you noticed, there are every possible different names for every mango from south to north. Sindhura in Rajahmundry, Sundari in Delhi and Suvarnarekha in Rajahmundry. Sindhura in Raichoti, Gulab Khas in Bihar, Banganpalli in Nagar and Safeda in Lucknow. Markets are actually disconnected, fragmented because of this. This needs to be solved on a war footing. A large effort in collaboration with agriculture universities, government departments, institutions like ICRISAT, FAO, all this needs to come together and unifying these names and create a standard agri vocabulary, something similar to UNSPSC, United Nations Standard Product Coding. And without this, again, the markets are not opening up and even the information is not reaching up, and providing any kind of services seriously hampered because of this. Then, of course, the other thing we noticed is we lack digital marketplaces. For example, there is no serious input marketplaces, probably few are there, but when it comes to outputs, there are very, very few. And people tend to probably go to Alibaba and Trade India. Why is it happening? Because we don't have specialized, and that both in terms of the generic and the specialized marketplaces. But probably the bottom line here is that it's very easy to build a marketplace. Technology is probably the easiest thing in here, building the marketplace. But listing the produce in that is very difficult for our sellers who are FPOs or the farmers. I don't know how many of you have tried, but if you try agri-produce, anything, let's say mangoes or let's say chilies in Trade India or Alibaba, which are the known marketplaces for agriculture, you get a list of exporters or a value-added products. But you don't find any of the raw produce sellers the FPOs or anybody. You won't find them. So where is the problem? The problem is the lack of marketing and the sales exposure to these FPOs and complicated listing, search engine optimization, marketing, all put a big need for this. FPOs need a marketing degree in the digital marketing degree in itself, right? But technology can solve here. We can have the technology with enough of the data keyed in, automatically list and maintain things, and AI and machine learning can actually come to our rescue here, so that from an FPO, once understood very well whether what they are doing, automatically list and push into these marketplaces. So the big burden of the listing is taken out from the FPOs. And ideally, all these things listed should be appropriately aggregated. And one of our colleague in this panel has already talked about it as aggregation. Particularly, I think it's the dairy. Sorry, I forgot the name, Mr. Mukundan, right? So the technology can handle this very well soon too. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Mukundan will agree that aggregation, both in terms of needs to be anticipated as well as aggregated, so that the marketplaces have this produce well in advance rather than just in time kind of thing. And other problem what we have seen in the marketplaces is discovering the opportunities. Again, someone from Mumbai, let's say he wants a 20-ton mangoes of certain parameters, right? Typical listing in a marketplace will not match exactly to this 20 tons, but it's mostly listed based on the producer's availability and when he's coming up with and how much he's coming up with. So they don't find the matching, and it's left to it's an open negotiations and that kind of stuff. So the technology here again should be able to useful to dynamically map the needs of both supply and demand and trigger alerts to both these people, which is actually is one of the, if at all there is a big value add that intermediary layers in agriculture domain today are doing, they are doing this, matching the supply and demand. And this technology can solve with respect to discovering the opportunities. That is going to be big help in creating a sustainable marketplaces. And the other few more things that that are also we have seen in the marketplaces particularly is negotiations in terms of reference. More than prices, and actually the FPOs lose more when a contract is not properly negotiated. Right? Technology should be able to assist the FPOs, in fact both the parties, in negotiating all the parameters like transportation, who should pay that, insurance, quality, size, parameters, and payment schedules. All these parameters should properly be negotiated. Technology should help that yes, everything is discussed, negotiated, and it's upfront documented, so that both of them, basically if it's not documented well enough, moral hazard kicks in, right? In that again the goes down, the marketplaces goes down. And of course the transactions and money transfers and all these things through escrow systems, these are some of the things which already solved to some extent. But the few things that I talked before in terms of the listing and marketplaces and commodity standardization, I think those are the key things that the technology should help. And in fact, my strong belief is that technology should enable the FPO to compete in these marketplaces transparently in an open market, and transformation will evolve in no time. Thank you, Hemendra.
Thanks very much, Raj. Really appreciate it. I think interesting discussion, use of technology for negotiation. I think that's a great point. I think they need bit of education, definitely. But yeah, those tools don't exist, and it's a clear opportunity. And I also agree with you that a lot of marketplaces are catering to traders and processors, not necessarily to FPOs. So I think that is another gap area which I guess entrepreneurs like you can bridge. So thanks very much, Raj, for this interesting observations and remarks that you made. With that, I'll go to Srihari Kochala from eFresh Agribusiness Solution. Srihari, the question for you, if you can share eFresh experience in enabling FPOs towards commercialization and digital transformation using various technology initiatives that you've taken.
Thank you, Mahendra. Hemendra. So eFresh actually working enabling this FPOs towards commercialization and digital transformation. So we looked at two ways in addressing the challenges faced in the FPOs ecosystem. So first is FPO as an institution. The second is farmers as its members. So let us consider FPO as a mother to be empowered in three ways. One is commercialization. You see, most of the FPOs, sustainability is affected because they are not able to earn money to sustain their business operations. So that is the commercialization. What we considered is access to good agriculture practices, access to quality products, services, and also providing market linkages for the farm output. So that is one aspect of commercialization, to empower the FPO so that they can service its members. The second biggest challenge faced by the FPOs is flow of funds into the system. So this funds flow can happen. One is from the FPO members. The second is finance from the institutions. The third is various facilities that are available from the government institutions. Now let us talk the first about commercialization. What we have done is we have come out with a Farmers Development Center, which is a eFresh franchise business model, where FPO is a franchise, and we assist them in setting up a one-stop shop solution covering both the supply of quality products, linkages, and services through FDC. And here what we are doing, we have actually entered into credible agreements with the various partners in the FPO ecosystem, so that whatever the challenges faced by the FPOs in the commercialization domain is provided. So this flow of funds is one aspect. The third aspect is visibility of the FPO to a marketplace as a viable agri-business enterprise. See, these are the three challenges what we considered, and then we started working on that. So what we have done, these major challenges for this commercialization, we have come out with FDC concept, and towards funds flow, we have developed a customized accounting tool for the FPOs, which will facilitate the live information on whether inventory and the financial data to enable them to have the ready availability of financial data requested either by the bankers or by the funding institutions. So one is availability of latest financial data, which can also be seen by the FPO directors. You see, the funds flow from the even FPO directors is affected because there is no transparent system of accounting maintained by the CEO or its administrative assistant. They don't know what happened to the stock. So the funds flow is affected. So how to solve this? We have come out with that tool, and that is also facilitating banker also can remotely monitor what is happening for the loans sanctioned by them. So that means, so one is ease of facilitating funds flow to the FPO using the technology towards accounting solution. Then coming to this, what we have done regarding advisory services and this statutory compliances, again, has become a very big problem for the FPOs. So coming to Income Tax Act, Companies Act is there, GST is there. So how to, this is becoming a major challenge which they are not able to submit online, or they are not at all submitting. So we have come out, one is e-quality management system, and also one e-merchant basic we developed, so that at any point of time the entire FPO profile and also conformance to licenses and generation of GST, so these are taken care of. So one is statutory compliances, the second is funds flow system into the FPO, the third is commercialization aspect. So we have one is we have tool is e-quality management system. The second one is we call it e-merchant. The third one is and e-farmery. You see here another like this procurement angle, the biggest problem is how to ensure traceability to the system and also the conformance to various quality parameters of different institutional buyers. So that is, so we have come out in that as a e-procurement module added to that, so that that can also be addressed from farm to till it reaches the consumer. So ultimately this one, see, enabling ease of doing business for FPOs so that they can provide better services to the farmers. So our emphasis is first to empower FPO, which is a mother. Then automatic, empower means what? First is commercialization, make some money out of commercialization activity. See that you are visible. The third is how uninterrupted funds flow can come into the system. So we have developed various digital tools, even CCTVs is a mandatory at our FPOs. We are now working in with the 70 FPOs under FDC model in 9 states, and we will be entering the Northeast and UP. And beside this, what we did, if they are not franchisees, we are also making them as B2B customers to supply the quality products and technology production.
Thank you, Sherry. I think it's a very wide bouquet of products that you have developed, but the good part is to see the FPO centricity in terms of the pain point that you're solving for them. This is great and looks pretty scalable solution for any FPO to adopt. So thanks very much, Sherry, for that. With that, I'll come to Kenneth Queen, President for World Food Foundation. Kenneth, you have tons of experience in this space. Can you share with your experience, particularly on adoption of digital tools by farmers, and how does it impact the sustainability of agriculture? Kenneth, over to you.
Well, yes. So thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this today. I want to say that my first impression is that the participants here today are similar to those that Norman Borlaug and M.S. Swaminathan were working with back in the 1960s and 1970s. And you all are the foot soldiers, if you will. The major find that comparison interesting in the next revolution that has to take agriculture in India and in the world to that next level. I just did a program with China and with Chinese business leaders and educators. Tomorrow I'm doing a program in Africa. I 2 days ago did one on Afghanistan, and the message that I have and I share is that everything that is taking place here centers around the three great challenges that affect our planet, not just our countries, but our planet. And that is, are we going to be able to produce enough food to feed 9 to 10 billion people who are going to be on our planet? And population increases, of course, coming in South Asia and Africa, in large part of that 9 to 10 billion people who have to be fed. Can we do it with the issues of climate change and climate volatility that are making farming even more difficult, and at the same time prevent the pandemic spread of human, but particularly animal diseases? Just imagine your country, like mine, is beset with COVID and having this devastating impact. But just imagine if animal diseases were affecting India and America and hitting our milk production, pork production, chickens in that same way. And so this is so critical at what's done, and digitization is absolutely a key to it. Now, in meeting with farmers in Uganda or in Ghana or in Vietnam and Cambodia, I come away with similar issues that have to be addressed if the sustainability is going to be met. And I think in some ways it's the same issues that I faced when I first was working in villages 53 years ago. And they start with the letter T, in a sense of trust, translation, and transportation. And if farmers that you're working with have to trust the outsiders, they are suspicious of new programs or people who are coming from urban areas, and how you build that trust. And to me, the FPOs can be critical in that, in sharing experience between farmers and introducing individuals and leaders who are trusted. Because I think all of the things that you all do are built on the farmers trusting you and what you offer and in your systems. Translation, I know that if those who are coming to offer new solutions, new digital solutions, you have to have somebody that explains it in the language of the farmers, which can often be different. I've seen at ICRISAT having to go from English to Hindi, then to a vernacular language spoken in a village. And you have to have extension workers who are able to do that and carry out that translation. But the other key is in all of this has been transportation, which is to say rural roads. So the great promise of digital solutions and information being shared is so inspiring and so filled with potential, whether it's about precision agriculture, about how much water you put or moisture you put on a seed at a critical moment, to how payments are made, how in Nigeria, Akin Adesina, now the president of the African Development Bank, introduced ways that farmers could cut out the middlemen in transactions and have feelings of confidence in all of that. But it seems that if you don't have improved rural roads, that all of the things you do, even digitally, that you're not going to be successful. Now, maybe that's not your experience, but everywhere I go, and if you look at China, which is probably the most transformed country on the face of the earth from the last 40 years, it was that they built improved rural roads everywhere. And with the roads comes the access to technology, the access for extension workers, and it seems to be an important concomitant to what you are doing in this exciting digital space.
Thank you, Kenneth. I think that's a great point. I think digital infrastructure has to go hand in hand with physical infrastructure. So that's a great point. And your framework of trust, translation, and transportation is also something really nice. I've heard it for the first time, and I'm sure it has application in Indian agriculture. So thanks very much for your valuable remarks. I think we are in the last 10 minutes of the discussion. So I'll ask two questions each to the panelists. I'll ask them to restrict their answers to maybe 2 minutes. And probably we can, it's the same question for all the panelists. And the question is ecosystem role, specifically FPOs, in improving adoption of tech tools among farmers. And secondly, what kind of future outlook each one of you have on technology perspective in transforming agriculture? You know, we are in 2021 at the start of the decade. How do you see Indian agriculture in 2030? How technology can transform it? What's your outlook? Where do you see we going? How far we can go? So maybe Ranjit, again, we can start with you. If you can share your views.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Hemendra, for that. So I think it was a really good bunch of insights coming from rest of the speakers and my co-panelists. One of the key threads that I've noticed was that everyone stressed on an ecosystem approach, which I think will become the de facto way in which we can render services in this highly disaggregated kind of a scenario. Because once you build out that digital platform, like the one we have built out, being a startup, there's only so much we could do. So we have built out a digital platform and an access network, and we have deployed about 200 crores building it out over the last 10 years, which is a very tiny number compared to the kind of opportunity that exists. Now, it will be a pity if this infrastructure cannot be leveraged in a way that multiple ecosystem participants can actually leverage this platform. And of course, we benefit because from every access that we provide, we get a commission out of it. But then the ecosystem gets to participate so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel and sort of bring down the costs of rendering a service. So I strongly believe that ecosystem approach is the only way, and FPOs becomes again very pivotal. A good example, for example, is once the network is built out, we are rendering financial services. And for that, we actually nominate the FPO participant as a business correspondent, for the credit products and as a micro agent for the insurance product and all of that, right? So they become very gainfully, employed. They become a party to this entire ecosystem, leverage. And for us, it's a great way to scale because it becomes like a B2B2F model. because you can't reach the farmers directly in a retail model and scale quickly. So the idea is in the B2B2F model, you'll end up scaling faster, so it meets our vested business interest, and at the same time the FPOs can scale more rapidly. And as I mentioned right in the beginning, and as many of the other co-panelists mentioned, they're such a critical piece of this supply chain, being the local trust point and being the local assisted point. Without them, no technology absorption can ever happen very effectively, especially in our type of market where the usage levels for high-end tech directly by a farmer may not take off until they're adequately equipped, right? It cannot be an end-to-end app-driven economy like it happens in the urban-centric scenario. So that's the part about the role of FPO as part of a pivotal part of the ecosystem and improving adoption of technology amongst farmers. In terms of the future, the outlook of the industry and the technology in transformation, in transforming agriculture, I think all of us know that our agricultural supply chains are highly analog and old-fashioned in many ways, highly fragmented. So the only way forward from here is to sort of bring them online, digitize them, and all of us here spoke about digital transformation. It's only the tech first approach that's going to pave the way for ensuring that this highly disaggregated market can start seeing some logical intensification and some logical precision intervention. Although physically it might be, we have limitations by way of land holding patterns and all of that. So maybe physically there's a limit to which we can intensify, but logically it can be intensified through a whole bunch of tech, and tech perhaps as a key enabler to enable all sorts of commerce that leads into a consumer or a farmer. It could be input services, input products, or or FMCG products that consumer buys by way of commodities or brands. And it has not been far behind as a percentage. When you look at the percentage of spend on technology as a percentage of the margins, the spend is as good as anywhere else globally. But it's just that our margins are so wafer thin. On an absolute basis, it looks like a very poor spend. So I think as this logical intensification picks up, I think we will see more and more, upside for more technology adoption, be it in terms of private blockchain, permission blockchain, facial recognition of cattle, like the ones we're working on, alternate sources of power to run the automation at the farms, data-led risk underwriting mechanisms, real-time lend and monitor mechanism, traceability to enable mass premium consumer base. I think the only way is up. And I see a huge, big future with all of these technologies becoming a prime time enabler in the next 10 years. Thank you.
Ranjit. Thanks very much. That was tech-enabled solutions to scale, no question about it, and the role of ecosystem that you highlighted. Dhyanesh, your views, and my request to all the panelists, if they can restrict their responses to 2 minutes, since we are short of time. Dhyanesh, over to you.
I'm going to echo the views. I'm going to echo the views that I that Ranjit made here. Also, what I mentioned in the first part of the conversation, saying that for us, FPOs as an enabler for rural insurance, it's a win-win partnership where there is a technology platform that can be leveraged through the FPO network to provide insurance access at scale. Also, there are multiple things that can happen in the insurance bid, whether you look at retail-based insurances or group-based insurance. I think both the models are ones which can be supported through the FPO. And the FPOs themselves, as they scale and become larger and cater to a larger set of farmers over a period of time, can become, so to say, in the terms of insurance parlance, it can become master policyholders, and we can create customized solutions for the FPO members themselves, whether it is parametric crop insurance, whether it is livestock insurance, whether it is health insurance. The scope of insurance to play a role is huge, and I think FPOs can be a great enabler. In terms of some technologies that I see will be very, very, I would say, prominent in the coming years, I think one is precision ag-tech, where we can then look at probably doing a farm level insurance. I think that has been the holy grail, so to say, on the insurance bit. Obviously, then proprietary weather data and agro advisory services, drones being used in agriculture in a larger way, and remote sensing data through which you can have a lot of efficiency in crop cutting experiments or in terms of estimating the yield. So I think these are 3 or 4 key areas that will transform agriculture in the years to come.
Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks very much. Yeah, with that, probably I can move to Major Sharma. Major Sharma?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah. So, fully resonant with the speakers. I would just like to highlight some of the simple technologies where the FPOs, in particular in the space where we are working for organic farming for small farmers, one of the things that we realize, do what you feel like, the perishability of the vegetables is so high that the wastage levels tend to be high if they are not sold there and then. So one of the things that we figured out, and this is again a classic example of a simple but highly impactful technology. We went back to a team in IIT Madras, and they've actually designed a solar dryer, a 20 kg solar dryer with which we can actually dry all the surplus vegetables. And when we are working with the groups of the farmers, in fact, some of them take up solar drying as their full-time activity. So within the FPO, there are farmers who are growing and there are farmers who are solar drying. And that way we ensure that there is absolutely no wastage of the products, and the perishability is gone and you have a year's life. So simple solutions like these, and many of them are actually innovated by these very people when they come back. And we go back to the technology institutions and the ecosystem of working with technology institutions, etc. It helps quite a lot.
Yeah. Sure, Major Sharma. Simple solution, grassroots solution, I think they're as critical as any digital tech or deep tech solution, absolutely. With that, maybe I can invite Raj for his comments.
Yeah, thanks, Hemendra. And again, great points already made, but I just would want to highlight a few points. First of all, I think the technology adoption should happen for everyone around the farmer, rather than the farmer himself. Farmer should be the last. The government departments and agriculture universities, input companies, suppliers, and FPO itself. I tell you an example, right? When I was talking to input suppliers, only 50% of the large input companies are using any kind of ERPs. And out of that, over 70% of them are outdated. Right? So the ecosystem needs to adopt the technology more importantly than putting extra emphasis on the farmer. That's my thought process. Anyway, but in agriculture, the adoption, I think sometimes we're trying to put too much emphasis on technology in terms of its whether it's a drone or blockchains or IoTs or this kind of stuff. Technology need not to be that alone. Simple technologies can, as Mr. Sharma is saying, can be a lot more useful. But how FPO can help in adoption of technology among the farmers? That I think, basically any adoption has to be giving the differential, tangible, and immediate benefits. If these benefits are not differential and tangible, and adoption is going to be having assisted tech, talking about, or call it as a digital assistance. Help the farmers to, use the digital assistance, adopt the technology on behalf of the farmer, and more importantly, showcase the differential benefits that the usage. But we need to have a clear, defined benefits that the farmer gets once this adoption is done by the FPO itself. It could be messaging, information access, or it could be a loan process information. Very quickly your loan gets processed, or it can be the insurance claim processes, which is very fast, or even traceability, showcasing the farmer name itself. It's another gratification. So FPO needs to really adopt technology on behalf of the farmer and showcase the value or the differential benefits to him. And again, coming back to the future outlook of the technology, so far, in the agriculture, unlike other sectors, the past technology advances so far have been mostly genetic or mechanical in agriculture, right? Which obviously got us to where we are today. But going forward, I believe that agriculture must embrace a massive network of connected devices and digital tools, right? And it's probably the largest, scale-wise, it's the largest conglomerate or the convergence of these digital tools and connected devices. And then only this transformation is going to create, only this kind of transformation is going to create the value. And probably initially these benefits might be seen only among the large farms because of the investments and all those things and adoption costs involved. But that is where FPOs come into the picture, where it can bring the large farm benefits to the small farmers. And it's only the time, I believe that LiveClick in adopting all these technologies in the agriculture. Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks very much. I think some very valuable points. I think agriculture probably would have the largest set of connected devices than any other sector. And I think your point is well taken that the ecosystem also has to adopt technology. It's not just farmers. That's great. Maybe we can go to Srihari for his remarks.
Thank you, Hemant. This is how an FPO adoption of technology can be improved. We had a very good experience. So what we looked at first is a simple technology solution and what critical challenges this technology is addressing, and ease of implementation and benefits realized out of its implementation. You see, ultimately each FPO says what benefit I am getting out of this, how easy it is to be implemented. So these are the important factors to be considered when we develop a technology and pass it on to the FPO. The second is developing some model FPOs, whether small and medium FPOs, where to empower them complete adoption of technology so that they can become brand ambassadors to other FPOs. We had a very good experience in this promotion of good agricultural practices. At some FPOs, we selected model farmers out of 5 acres, say 1 acre, we support them with good agricultural practices. And once he finds the difference between the productivity increase and quality, automatically a large number of farmers adopted. So the same approach, FPO, we have to develop some FPOs on a model basis, then they can become brand ambassadors. So that way we can resolve the easy implementation by the FPOs. Coming to this future role, see, data analytics must become the decision making for their decisions is one. The second is farm to fork approach in the food supply chain, ensuring the traceability at each of the levels. And the third most important is irrigation efficiency, how best it can be resolved using the smart tools. The third one is this crop diagnostics, how it can be ensured, whether it is satellite imagery or sensors and all, how this can be done. See, that is why first if we empower FPOs as a mother, that will take care of its farmer members using this even future technology can be sustainable, provided these have to be very practical and ease of implementation is the most important criteria for this.
Thanks very much. I think the role of model FPOs as brand ambassador, I think it's a great idea. With that, can I move to Kenneth for your remarks?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again for letting me be part of this discussion. I would look in the long term to look ahead to when India is going to celebrate its 100-year anniversary of throwing off colonial rule, and say that it's the next generation that's going to decide whether India, just as it will be in the United States and China and Africa, it's that next generation of young people who are going to decide whether our countries successfully meet the great challenge of feeding all the people we'll have. And it will be critical and key to have young people now, while they're still in high school and secondary school, becoming familiar with and learning about and adapting these technologies that you're discussing. And have if you have the means of having programs and having them associated with FPOs is a very positive way of doing that. I want to say just one final word, is that the other theme I stress is peace through agriculture, that agriculture is a key to overcoming disputes between companies, between different sectarian groups, and addressing issues of uplifting people out of malnutrition and hunger. And I'm speaking to you from Iowa, where one of our heroes here is a man, professor named George Washington Carver, who in 1929, Mahatma Gandhi reached out to, and they had this collaborative discussions for the next 6 years, Carver sharing views on nutrition, so Gandhi would be strong enough with his diet to be able to achieve and provide the leadership for your country to be free and independent and democratic today. So in Iowa, we feel a small part of pride, not only in Norman Borlaug's connection to your country, but also George Washington Carver's connection to Gandhi. So thank you again for letting me be part of this. I've learned a lot.
Thanks, Kenneth. Agriculture to drive peace. I think that's a very noble thought to end the discussion with. Thanks very much for that, and thanks to all the panelists for such an insightful and wonderful session. Just to conclude, I want to say that if you look at the last decade, as far as technology solutions in agriculture are concerned, it was all about, I would say, product development, evangelization, making mistakes, course correction, finding your feet, and we have this army of over 1,000 agri-tech entrepreneurs who are trying to build it. I think the next decade I see is all about scaling, commercialization, go-to-market, and adoption by the farmer. I think that's the next front that we need to address, and I'm very sure as the FPO ecosystem evolves, this goal will be achieved. So with that, again, thanks to all the panelists and all the participants on the call.